While the majority of Americans are struggling under the policies of President Donald Trump and the Republican Party, there is one group that is doing better than ever before. And you're not going to be surprised who it is. Rich people. Of course. Because, of course, who always does better? Rich people. This is according to a recent report by Oxfam America. In it, they say that the collective wealth of America's top 10 wealthiest Americans have increased by a staggering $698 billion in this year alone. Yes, that is over $500 billion in total wealth in just 1 year. In addition, the number of ultra high net worth individuals, people worth over $30 million or more, grew significantly in the first half of 2025, reports CNBC. Oh, what's going on here? What is driving this? Why are there suddenly more wealthy people popping up while the rest of America goes broke? This is, again, this is one of those whodunit mysteries that are pretty easy to figure out, actually. But one of the big reasons why this is happening is, of course, the Trump tax bill. That's right. In fact, Oxfam described this so-called one big beautiful bill as, quote, one of the single largest transfers of wealth upward in decades. Which the other one, of course, being the Bush tax cuts. And the first Trump tax cuts for the rich, by the way. In fact, here's what Oxfam writes about this. Top 0.1% of earners will see the annual tax bill shrink by an estimated $311,000 by 2027. While low-income households, those making under $15,000 a year, the poorest of the poor, are actually projected to see a tax increase. Yeah, you're not hearing that incorrectly. The poorest of the poor are going to pay more in taxes. Again, you're getting poor people to pay more, while rich people pay less. I mean, this is the complete opposite of how things should be. The complete opposite. But again, this is exactly what Republicans were looking for, okay? And look, we're being run by rich people who keep rigging the system to help themselves. That's really it. In fact, Rebecca Riddell, senior policy lead for economic justice at Oxfam, said this, quote, inequality is a policy choice. These comparisons show us that we can make different choices when it comes to poverty and inequality in our society. Yes, but not if we're continuing to be run by sociopaths who are funded by the ultra wealthy. Understand that the rich have been getting richer for decades, okay? Thanks, in large part, to our broken campaign finance system. In fact, Riddell noted that it's not just the fault of Republicans here. Both parties share a responsibility for allowing the richest Americans, to continue to rob us. Quote, policymakers have been choosing inequality. Then those choices have had bipartisan support, she said. Policy reforms over the last 40 years, from cuts to taxes and the social safety net to labor issues and beyond, really had the backing of both parties. Yeah, I mean, look, we can go all the way back to Bill Clinton. And I know this is an unpopular discussion among Democrats, but you got to look at it. You got to go back to where it began, okay? Remember, Bill Clinton said the era of big government is over, and then made welfare reform, okay, which did not help anybody other than rich people, okay? And also, you can look afterwards at the ACA, the Affordable Care Act, right? Now, the Affordable Care Act is basically a subsidy to health insurance companies. Now, with the promise, though, that if taxpayer money keeps flowing to these corporations in the form of tax credits, for example, they will not raise prices beyond what normal people can afford. Now, the fight here for those tax credits is central to the government shutdown. Okay? The Republicans did not plan on extending those tax credits. This is why the ACA marketplace right now is exposing people to mass sticker shock. Okay? So, I mean, that you're seeing videos of that. You're seeing examples of that. Okay? Where people will go onto the ACA exchanges and they're seeing their health plans go from $200-$300 a month, which I still say is rather unaffordable for a lot of people. They'll see, the prices go from there to $1,000, $1,200, $1,500, $1,600 a month. And they're like, oh my God, what is going on here? What? It's because these companies are not getting their subsidy. They're not getting their tax credits. They're not getting their handouts from the federal government. And so they're passing that cost onto you so that they continue to make record profits. Okay? Now, Democrats could have avoided this by supporting single-payer healthcare, Medicare for all. Okay? But they didn't. And the reason that they didn't is because health insurance companies are huge donors to both parties. They're huge donors to the Democratic Party, huge donors to the Republican Party. Okay? Now, this is an example of how Democrats have been helping the rich, while also, by the way, trying to help regular people. You see, the Democrats are doing both, right? So yes, their policies support rich people, just like Republican policies. However, Democrats are also like, well, we got to throw a bone to the poor. We want to help poor people too. We want to help working people too. Okay, so yes, we're going to do policies that, help them as well. Now, you can't really serve two masters very well. And so, Democratic policies are better for workers, are better for regular people. Yes, it is true. They're not the same, but a lot of the policies that the Democrats do adopt end up helping rich people as well. Okay? And so that's one of the problems. All right? Look, another example of that, okay, is means testing. Means testing for a lot of the assistance programs. Now, Democrats, of course, support those assistance programs, but they also support massive means testing. And they also support subsidies and tax credits, as opposed to, for example, direct help. Okay? And so that's one of the problems. Now, I criticize the Democrats, right? But Republicans also deserve even more criticism because Republicans don't even pretend to help working people. So back to the report. Now, Oxfam looked at how the wealth at the top 1%. So Oxfam looked at how wealth at the top 1% has, how much they have amassed since 1989. And they found that the top 1% of U.S. households actually gained about 101 times more wealth than the median household over that same period, and nearly 1,000 times more than those in the bottom fifth of earners, which amounts to about $8.35 million per household for the richest 1%, compared to just $83,000 for the average family. That, meanwhile, more than 40% of Americans, including nearly half of all children, are now classified as low income. That's right. Living on less than twice the federal poverty line. The rich got richer while we all got poorer. Much poorer. Okay? So, look, while, by the way, working harder. We have worked harder than we've ever have. Okay? We're working harder than we've ever had. Productivity continues to rise. And yet the pay just doesn't keep up. Okay? And so that's the reality of living in America. Again, the reality of living under a bunch of psychopathic rich people. Okay? Look, compared to the other developed nations, 32 of which seem to have figured out the complexities of doing single-payer healthcare. Okay? Only 32 of them, of the 33 developed countries in this world, have figured out that universal healthcare actually works and have figured out how to do it. Okay? Look, we're a joke compared to the rest of them. Okay? And it's a bad joke. Currently, the United States ranks worst for relative poverty. Second, for child poverty. I thought you cared about the children, right? Apparently you don't. And, infant mortality. That's right, we're second for infant mortality. And we're near the bottom for life expectancy. And it is not because, you've got the stuff in your food and the chemicals and the fluoride in the water, and that's why you're not doing so well. So says RFK Jr. No, the reality is we are overstressed because we're overworked, okay? And we don't have universal health care. We cannot go to a doctor when we need one, okay? We can't do it. Can't afford health care, can't afford medication because of the extremely wealthy. So if you're wondering who Donald Trump looks out for, well, it ain't you and me, okay? It's him and people that are part of his class. It is class warfare, and they have been winning that war for a very, very long time. Ever since the flood of money went into our political system thanks to Ronald Reagan, okay, and his corrupt Supreme Court that opened the floodgates, all right? Now, that said, while Trump has done a pretty great job of servicing the very wealthy, like himself, what happens when one of his devoted followers literally asks him to help him stay alive? I'm going to discuss that in another segment.